Jeff Mucci with RCR Wireless News. We're here in San Francisco at the 2011 Open Mobile Summit. Robin Batt, who is the Managing Director of Open Mobile Media. You did a great job this week.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
I got a couple quick questions for you.
Let's go.
Tell me about what are the highlights from the first 2 days of the event?
I thought that getting the two carrier CTOs, Verizon Wireless and Sprint, on the stage with Rob Glazer and Scott from Morgan Stanley, that was a great conversation for me, because it's very rare that you get people from the content, media, internet world to talk about how you price and package 4G and what that's going to make for the ecosystem. I thought the connected car session was great. Future of TV was really good. There was a load of great stuff. Actually, the highlight for me is always the talking to all the attendees, finding out who's actually here and having real conversations with them. So that was great. I had a good time.
Well, day 3 is Appcelerator.
That's right.
So how would you compare and contrast for people who are not here? Compare and contrast the sessions and speakers of Appcelerator to the first 2 days.
Sure. Well, the Open Mobile Summit is all about bringing the most powerful people in converging worlds together to talk about the future. So it's a convergence conversation. It's looking at the big strategic competitive battlegrounds, the OS wars, the battle for mind share, the battle between different devices. So it's very much future looking, and it's a real kind of highbrow discussion about where the market's going to. Appcelerate's about right now. So there's a lot of apps conferences around. Most of them are speculating about what might happen, and they're usually populated by people who are selling to app publishers. Here we've got the people we could identify as the most successful app publishers today standing on stage saying, this is how I did it. This is specifically how I achieved. So it's best practices from people with very demonstrated success in specifically publishing apps right now, talking about how the market is right now. So it's very immediate in that sense.
So one of the sessions yesterday, you had NPR, Financial Times, you had MiG-33.
Yep.
As you think back at that panel and you heard the stories of people who are trying to roll out applications, trying to adapt their content for different platforms, what stood out most in your mind from some of those panels that were presented by the media companies?
Well, I mean, the significant thing about that panel is that 3 major media companies, the Financial Times, the New York Times, and National Public Radio, have all produced HTML5 web-based mobile services, and the Financial Times are not on the App Store anymore. They had a very successful app. They're no longer in iTunes. They are off Apple, and that is strategically. This is a big battleground. First of all, it shows that HTML5 is ready, and there's a lot you can do with Open Mobile Web. But second of all, it shows that finally publishing companies, the big heavyweight ones, are voting with their feet, and they're saying we're going to create our own business model. We're going to be in control of our own business model. So most of them are saying, well, we like Apple, we're happy about that. It's a monetizable channel for content, which is a rare thing these days, but we don't want to be just on Apple. So, I think that's more a kind of political business model issue, and it's been talked about every year at this conference for 4 years, and it's finally actually starting to happen. So I think next year it will be much more of a mainstream phenomenon that people will have a presence on the Open Mobile Web as opposed to simply in iTunes. But that doesn't mean that Apple's going away. It just means it's going to be a channel as opposed to the channel. So I think it's highly significant.
Okay, one of the other panels yesterday that really stood out in my mind was the Silicon War channel.
Okay.
What are some of the highlights about, and why did you bring in some of the silicon companies for this particular event?
Well, so this event's about convergence, and it's about trying to understand these major battlegrounds. And one of the major battlegrounds is what happens where the PC meets the phone. You can't characterize that better, really, than where Intel meets ARM and Qualcomm. So, I mean, we've got the smartphone wars. That's the piece that everybody sees, and Nokia tanking and RIM tanking, and Samsung, taking over from Apple in market share this last week. But behind that, a whole industries, and it's the computing industry, it's Microsoft, it's the people who make people talk about it being the end of the PC era. So this OS war, is a software war, is actually very, very significant, and underneath that you've got silicon, and the guys that are making silicon today they're going to drive the capabilities of the next 18 months of phones. But the reason I call it Silicon Wars is because there's a huge, big strategic battle going on there over whether Intel's going to be able to make great chips and get them into phones, or whether or not ARM and Qualcomm's kind of part of the universe is going to sort of take over the kind of tablet, notebook, that kind of in-betweeny area. So it's just another one of the key strategic battlegrounds.
Last question, what's up next for Open Mobile Media?
We'll be in London for the Open Mobile Summit, London, which is May 29th to 31st. So that's going to be a big one, and that's our main focus right now.
Jeff Mucci, RCR Wireless News, here in San Francisco at 2011 Open Mobile Summit. Thank you very much.